perform it, but the others won't. And let's be fair to everybody. Where we finished off the previous session was that we started the chapter 5, which is extremely important. As we've identified earlier this morning, there's a lot of topics that you have to have knowledge about if you really want to be effective in sales. One of the biggest ones is starting with yourself and getting to know yourself and understanding yourself. Well, chapter 5 is about attending to most of those issues. You know that we finished the chapter with stress management and stuff like that. I've not included this in this particular session or in a revision session because I think those are just very helpful tips. We need to know that it is very stressful, and any profession for that matter. If we do not manage our time properly, we are going to be very stressed. We can manage our stress if we manage our time better. And that's where we are at this point. There are 3 different goals that salespeople want to achieve. They've got performance goals, they've got activity goals, and they've got conversion goals. The performance goals are goals that you set yourself that you have to achieve. Often in sales, it's given to you in the form of a sales manager telling the sales team, Andre, I want you to sell 5 units this month. Tarquin, you need to do 7. Sean, I'm not sure with your Wi-Fi up and down, but let's say you sell 5. Everybody has a target, and as a team collectively, you have a target as well that you have to achieve. Okay, so that's a performance goal, which is outcomes based. Now that, and at this point, for future reference as well, people, whenever it comes to setting goals and objectives, if it's in economics 1, if it's in business management, if it's in consumer behavior, if it's in personal selling, wherever you see something in a test or an exam or an assignment that says you've got to set goals, you've got to set objectives, always apply the SMART principle. I started marking your assignments. I have not finished it yet, but from what I've seen, there's a question where you have to specifically set objectives, and that is 9 out of 10 times. People give me the basics, but they do not refer to SMART, achievable, measurable, realistic, and time-bound objectives or goals. Right, so these performance goals also have to be reasonable. They have to be achievable. They have to be time-bound. This is the target for this month. We have to perform. Then you know at which level you need to perform. Okay. Secondly, your activity goals. How busy do you need to be in a day? How many activities do you need to do in a day, in a week, in a month to be able to achieve your performance goals? And conversion goals. That is where your activities are converted into performance. In other words, if at the top, and let me just open, I want to also just to enlarge go to full screen here. Right, if you throw 5,000 prospects in at the top, no, let's rephrase. If you need 100 customers at the bottom, because your sales target to reach for this month or for this term, for instance, is 100, then you know that usually you can double that, because every, or you can actually triple that. To get to 100, you need 300 people who are warm leads, okay? And you need 500 that actually have the potential, that you have qualified. They're not a lead anymore, they're actually a prospect. And for you to be able to get to your target of 100, you need 1,000 leads. So in other words, right at the top, you chuck in 1,000 leads, 500 of them you qualify and they become prospects. Out of the 500, 300 would be hot prospects that has the potential to actually purchase. from them 100. That's the ratio. 135 is the ratio usually used for 13510 is the ratio usually used for new business. Okay, so your conversion goals is how good are you getting at it? Now, if you want to improve your the more efficient you become, the more confident you become, those ratios is adjusted. You don't need 500 anymore. You don't need 1,000 leads to get 100 sales. If you are experienced after a year or two, you only need 500 leads that will result in 500 sales. So the ratios obviously adjust according to your improved ability. Right. Time management. Just remember one thing. Your time is as valuable as the time of the prospect. Okay, we cannot buy time. We cannot add another hour in a day. We can only focus on activities that's going to maximize our efficiency. In other words, don't spend time on activities that doesn't add value. And I'm not suggesting that if you're very tired and you can't keep your eyes open, that you shouldn't take a coffee break, because that's not going to result in a sale. But I know it is a non-profitable exercise. But at the end of the day, if you don't get that cup of coffee, you don't get that caffeine boost at that point, you probably won't get through the 10 calls that you still have to make. So finding the balance is where the secret lies at the end of the day. But if you spend most of your time on activities that adds to your efficiency, you will manage your time. You will find at the end of the day you actually have time. Oh, geez, what do I have to do? I never have time at the end of the day. Then you've actually worked more efficiently, and you've got two choices in that at that point. You can actually devote that time to reward yourself for managing your time well, or you can actually say, I would have normally worked this till 5 o'clock, but now that I'm done with all my work at 4, I can actually get ahead for tomorrow. I can maybe work an extra hour because I was anyway going to work till 5. Whichever way you go, at the end of the day, it will help you in the long run. Manage your time, or managing your time has 5 dimensions. It starts with setting goals. It starts with analyzing your market, your competitors, as well as your prospects. Planning, practicing what you want to say, practicing your presentation, practicing your sales call, and obviously then following up with your customers, because all of these are activities that needs to be done, and you have to allocate time to each of these activities. The more time you spend in setting your goals and analyzing and planning the first 3 steps, the easier it will become in the long run to do the rest of it. But if you devote your time to these activities, you'll see that over a period of time, you will actually be more efficient. Now, territory management, another aspect in this chapter that is rather important. Territory management is especially where you have a specific geographical area in which you function as a salesperson, and you need to, and usually there are boundaries, geographical boundaries that is set by a company to their sales team, who goes where, so you don't end up at the same customer 2 days in a row, or different salespeople end up with the same customers 2 days in a row, or there's customers that are never serviced because they weren't allocated properly. So managing your territory is very important. There are a few patterns that we have identified in this chapter. Those patterns will be addressed now when you do your different patterns and your pattern designs, which would be in the following slides, it's important for us to first determine or first classify your prospects, and you put your all your different customers and clients, prospects and existing customers into those 4 categories. You rate them as an A, B, C, or D customer or account. A being ones that are very profitable, those are your key accounts. Those are the ones that you're going to spend most time with, because you know that the results is going to be hugely beneficial, because they are loyal supporters of your brand and your product. B accounts, they are large accounts that have the possibility or the potential to become key accounts. Your C accounts or C customers. Medium accounts, they are usually new businesses. They're still trying to find their feet. You are still in the process of establishing a long-term relationship with these customers, and you can, however, rely on them contributing towards your turnover. They're not loyal yet, but they will put in regular orders. They are those type of businesses that don't waste time on trying to find new suppliers. They will just stay with what they used to. And you can always count on them, so don't discard them. And then your D accounts or your D customers, they will buy occasionally, they'll contribute, but they are very much, if it's an emergency purchase, they won't necessarily go back to the same supplier. They'll go to whoever's closest and can assist them. So it's not, you do still follow up with these customers, but you are not going to necessarily go out your way to spend apology, and devote too much time on these. Right, you have to calculate the break even as well. That's something that obviously, and who I'm not going to go through the calculations that's on the screen. I mean, that's in your slides and they are there as well. I want you to understand something. Who has trouble? For those Theresa, Tarquin, Andre, and Sean, that's in class at the moment. Who have a problem with break-even analysis? Who has a problem to determine what the break-even analysis is? I'm not going to go through the example on the screen. You can go through it because I mean it's in your slides, in your notes. Anybody has a problem to calculate a break-even point? If I say to you point P right there in this in the image, where the blue and the red line crosses, that's the break-even point. Who has difficulty to calculate that?
When you say whose ability,
who has a problem to calculate that point where those two lines cross, which is the break-even point?
It's not so difficult.
It's not difficult. Andre says it's not difficult. Quite simple. People, that's the point. The red line being your expenses, your blue line being your income. Where those two lines cross is the point where you're not making a profit, but you're also not making a loss. Okay? That's the starting point. Your expenses will be variable cost and fixed cost. So all your costs, your variable and your fixed cost, make up your total expenses or costs, which is represented by that red line. I'm not going to ask you to draw a graph like this. What I'm saying is you need to understand that point where they cross is where expenses and income are exactly the same. Okay, but it's not a difficult. And if you get a calculation or expect you to do a calculation like this in a test or exam, it's not going to be graphs and diagrams and it looks like a algebra or a trigonometry exam paper that you hated at school. It's not going to be like that. Remember, put it in context. Put it in context with the course that you are doing. But it is important. And why is a break-even? Why is it important to know what your break-even point is? It's important to know what your break-even point is because you need to know if your target for you to actually make the business work. And usually this is when these kind of break-even analysis and break-even points are calculated by your manager. That's the person, the sales manager, who would say, right, how I got to the sales targets for the month that I'm giving you guys now, and you say, well, no, we can't sell that many for this month. Well, guys, I've got news for you. We have to sell it, because if we sell 20, like the target is, we will actually make the profit that we have set ourselves, and obviously then everybody will be rewarded accordingly. If we are ever sell less than 15, then we're going to be in trouble. Then you're just going to get your basic salary. There's going to be no commission, because we would have reached our break-even point. No business is going to go into the red just to pay the or no good business to pay their staff. Okay, especially if you've not reached your targets. And that's the reason why this calculation is in here, to determine what's that point that we all have to reach as a team to make sure that we stay in business. Obviously, initially, you're probably going to go slightly under, and then you get closer to that, and then you reach the break-even point, and then later on. That's all part of finance management. In how many months do you need to, or can you, as a business, afford not to reach your target? In other words, not to reach the break-even point before you need to start making a profit for your business to survive and to eventually then grow. Right, the different routing patterns. It is to ensure that you that you have a plan when you actually get in your car as a salesperson to visit customers, and that you don't. You know what? Oh yes, yeah. Those are one of our customers. When you drive past their building, no, you need to have a plan. Especially and it's especially effective in very condensed areas where there are a lot of competitors and a lot of businesses that you need to actually service, and also then in rural areas where there are vast distances between customers because the towns are far apart. I haven't been in Gauteng for a number of years now, but those of you are from that area. I mean, who knows Johannesburg quite well? I mean, who knows the area well? Anybody? Or you guys more North Gauteng? Anybody knows Joey's well?
Yeah, I do.
How much how much time do you need? Now, thankfully, me neither, Teresa. How much time do you need to get from the west side of Johannesburg to the east side of Johannesburg? Let's say you've got a customer, a business that you have to. Is it possible, or because I've been told that it's such a challenge. You need to maybe just see clients on one side of town the one day and then the others the next day, because if you're going to shuttle between the two, you probably only get to see 2 clients in a day. Is that a good assumption? Was that person accurate when he said that?
Yeah, it's very challenging, especially if you're trying to go through Joburg to get to the other side. Try and take the highways. If something isn't wrong, if there's an accident or truck turnover,
which you never know. Yeah, I got one this morning, and I thought, oh, fortunately, and I never look at these electronic boards that they have next to the road that they tell you about what the road condition is and what the traffic is ahead. Because I'm usually just in a mellow mood, keeping my eyes on the car in front of me, especially in morning traffic. But I looked up and I saw this and I thought, oh, I just made it the right off ramp, because then if I continued, there was between that off ramp and the next one, there was an accident that was serious enough that it actually later on came onto the traffic news on the radio as well. And I thought, okay, right. So yes, if nothing happens, then probably it's still challenging. So, and if something like that happens, it's impossible.
An hour and a half.
Sure. People, that's why we have routing and visiting patterns to plan our trips. You need to obviously know your area to plan it. Okay, so you're not going to just do it by sitting in the office and populating a software program that will help you to do this. Okay, but there are 4 patterns that we've identified. I've put them on 2 slides, where in your original slides they were in over 4 pages. You've got your straight line, okay. Usually what happens with a straight line is that your clients that you have to visit, remember your C are your C clients, your A's are you go to the one that's furthest away and you work your way back to your office. Okay, that's what the straight line is. Your customers are in a straight line. With a clover pattern, usually the clover pattern is found in, I would say right in the center of that clover pattern, you will find Johannesburg CBD. And then you will have the north side of Johannesburg, the west side of Joey's, the south side of Joey's, and the same with the east. And you will plan your weeks and your days accordingly. Okay, you're going to spend all your time this week on the west side, for instance, and next week you spend on the east side. But that's done in a sort of a circular route and then repeated until all 4 those leaves of the clover basically have been completed. In this case, they've done it over 4 days. It doesn't have to be 4 days, depending on the size of the market that you have to reach. Then we also have our spiral pattern. This is especially where your clients are widely dispersed over a large area. I would suggest maybe the Northwest, for instance. I would go to Northern Cape, for instance. You can go to Eastern Cape. And then Namibia, I know that when I did my planning for Namibia trips, it was usually the spiral pattern that was used, because the towns are quite far apart, and you spend, you want to end up the previous evening in the place that you're going to start the next day, basically. Your zonal pattern, where the business has specific areas. I've used the example previously when I was servicing Virgin Active as one of my clients. Basically, I took the 21 Virgin Active clubs that was in the geographical area that I have to cover, which was north of N1 City. In other words, the northern suburbs of Cape Town, as well as Paarl and Wellington, Stellenbosch, and Somerset West. Covering all those, covering that area, I broke it up into 5 different zones. And day 1, for instance, I would be doing Stellenbosch and surrounds. And that will maybe include Strand and Somerset West, because between those 2, there are basically 2 Virgin Active clubs. Then I will go to the northern suburbs, where there are probably 5 or 6 clubs. There you'll spend 2 days, because I live in the northern suburbs. It was quite, I did it on the one day, and then I went home, and then I started from home the next morning, and then finished at the office in the afternoon. So that's basically a specific zone that you have, and it's serviced. It's quite simple, because now you can actually allocate a particular zone to a specific salesperson. Okay, know these patterns, know how each of them are, and know how to identify them, and in which situations it's best to use each of those. Right. We're finishing off with something that's extremely important, and that is prospecting. Prospecting is not just an activity that happens at the start of a selling process. It's not just the first step in the selling process, but it is where everything starts. Without prospects, you don't have a business. And you will, as we've identified in the first number of chapters yesterday already, you have to continuously prospect, because you will be losing clients for various reasons. Okay, hopefully not because your service has been bad. But a prospect, and this is where we differentiate again between a prospect and a lead. It starts with a lead, and that is anybody who might have the potential to buy your product. But you convert them into prospects when you qualify them. In other words, do they have the ability as well? They have the potential, but do they have the ability to actually to purchase your product? Do they have the money? Do they have the need for the product? Then they become prospects. Okay, so all prospects were originally leads. How does a salesperson find more customers? You obviously have to be very resilient. You have to almost be switched on 24/7. You cannot miss an opportunity. You have to be very observant. Obviously, you have to work very disciplined as well. I could probably, now I'll probably have to go to the next slide, because to me that's important that we determine that the prospects that we are looking for are going to be, or the methods that we're going to use and apply to find our prospects are going to be different from one industry to another. They are going to be different if businesses have different sizes. It will also depend on how many competitors there are in a particular industry. All these factors need to be included in whatever method you decide to use to find new prospects. On the final slide for the day, those are all the different ways in which you can source new prospects. I'll go through each of them in not in fast mode, but in a reasonable, at a reasonable pace, because it is the last slide for the revision. But look at those. It's an extensive list. And then people sometimes say, I don't know where to find my next prospect. Oh, geez, you don't have this slide. That's probably why. One of the best places to start with, in my opinion, is the one right at the bottom and the one right at the top. The one right at the top is satisfied customers. I mean, why wouldn't you? Because they are the ones who are going to give you very good referrals, which is the one second from the bottom. No, that's referrals from other salespeople. Sorry, that's certainly different. Satisfied customer is going to tell his friends. Geez, guys, you should go to that company. I've never had an experience like that. Usually it happens when it's often a service. For instance, because services industries are usually, services are often in the news because of poor service. Like restaurants, for instance. I've been very close, and I've used it in some examples to students last year when we still had students on campus. From where we are at the moment, about 5 kilometers from where I am at the moment, right next to Deermont High School, there's a KFC. That's a McDonald's. That's the worst McDonald's ever. And the students confirmed it. And the reason why I know that is because they told me in class, that's the closest place. So whenever there's a break, and the breaks in the past were much longer, and the periods were also an hour. So when they had off period, they can easily go there and buy and eat and come back. I thought I'll try it because they said that the service is poor. I tried them once. Service is not poor. It's non-existent. If you're, however, very happy, you are going to tell other people about it. If somebody says to you, if somebody asks you and you don't like that person, what's the closest, where's the closest takeaway place? Then you'll send them to McDonald's at the venue I just told you, because I mean, that's the kind of people or places you refer your not so good friends to, because you know that the service there is poor. Satisfied customers are going to give you good referrals. They're going to talk to your friends. They're going to, and it's usually those that you can actually also tie in with point number 2, the endless chain technique, where you get referrals where you get referrals from people phoning existing customers who are satisfied and ask them to give you maybe 2 or 3 people that they would recommend your services to or your product to. So they sort of tie they sort of tie into each other. Organizational records right at the bottom is also, it's available to you. It's there, it's saved, it's in your files. So that's, especially on existing customers, a very good starting point. If that existing customer in your organizational records is a satisfied customer, even better, because they'll give you good referrals. Your center of influence, that's usually where you use people, celebrities or well-known people, reputable people in a particular town or city, if it's local, if it's not national, to support your business. Sometimes you do that name dropping. If they are a client with you, it's very nice to obviously tell prospects that so-and-so are using our products and they're very happy. Okay, but again, only with the consent, obviously. Networking, it happens all the time. Networking is like never sleeping and taking all opportunities that's available. Be very alert, very observant. Obviously, internet is a great way of finding a new prospect. Advertising, catalogs, publicity, all of these are very effective. Some are more costly than others, especially larger media advertising, television, radio, that's expensive. And once the message has been shown, it's gone. And if you want to repeat it, it's going to cost you more. So it is expensive. But it's a way of getting to, and if you understand your customers, your market, then you know that in some cases that's the only way to reach your specific target market or target audience. Exhibitions and shows are very popular because it allows opportunity to demonstrate how the products work, and people love it. People will buy something if they know how it works, because then they can see the value of it and they can actually put themselves, they could put that product in their own environment, in their own home, and see how it can benefit, how they can benefit from it. Because and that's why exhibitions, if you cleverly do your layout of your stand, it's of great value, because then you can actually put the customer sort of in a real life situation. Lists and directories, compasses. I've told you that's one of the business directories that's very valuable, because it gives you information on all the on all the staff and board of directors and the history of businesses, and it's done industry by industry. Data mining, cold calling, telemarketing, those are the ones that are very much affected by the POPI Act, the protection of personal information that has been applied since the 1st of July this year. Read up on the POPI Act, it's quite interesting. There are the implications to telemarketing, to cold calling. Cold calling, for instance, is not going to be permitted with the new POPI Act. That's one thing that affects, is one method of selling that you cannot use. One thing about the POPI Act, for instance, you can contact a customer if you can offer, if you're offering a similar product to what they're currently using. If I buy product A from a company, that same company cannot phone me and try and sell product B to me. Product B must be a product, an upgraded version of product A for them to be able to phone me. They can only phone me once as well. I'm not sure how it's going to be policed, because I'm pretty sure that there are many companies who's not doing it efficiently yet. But it needs one incident that ends up in one court case, and then the line is drawn in the sand. Very interesting, the impact of the POPI Act on specifically on selling. It's something that I will address later on in one of the other chapters, just to make sure, I think when we get into the ethical side of selling, that I quickly want to address that in greater detail. Personal observation, as I said, switch on all the time. Don't miss an opportunity. If I say drive from here to that McDonald's that I've told you now, and I come back and I say, right, I'm going to ask you guys a question, or I'm going to ask the class a question. How many pick and pays were there along the way? Did you pick up? Some people will say pick and pay. I didn't see a pick and pay. Some people will say 2. There is actually only 1. So people observe things differently. Some people pay more attention to detail. Very important when selling. So you can actually pick up on opportunities if you are. And I've used my dad as an example here in previously as well. Going to the shop to buy bread and milk and coming back without bread and milk, but 5 leads that he can follow up the next morning. He was a born salesperson. Referrals from other salespeople. Make sure that you have part of your network. Number 4 at the top, networking. Part of your network must be salespeople in other businesses. They're not competitors to you, so they're not going to necessarily share, but if they know what you do and what you are selling, and you know what they do and what they are selling, maybe it's, if you have a good relationship with those other salespeople, you will refer it. It doesn't. So, I mean, I'm not sure. This product obviously is not going to work for you, but I know of a company that actually will be able to help you, and then you can refer them to them. But that's if you know. That's part of your networking. But if you actually have a very good relationship with other salespeople as well. Extremely important. Telemarketing, we know it's incoming and it's outbound. People phone in for information, and then telemarketers then also phone. Telemarketing outbound calls is going to be more challenging now with the new POPI Act. Right. People, I think at this stage we've done well. It's not an information overload, people, and please use this, because these are guidelines to, again, just summarize the aspects that form the backbone of each chapter. And you want to get to the point next Thursday when you close your books to start and do the test on Friday, where you say, I now know what every chapter is about, and it's well scaffolded. I understand the whole process, and I know what the important aspects in each chapter is. That's the part of what I'm doing with revision now. I'm not preparing you for the test. I am actually to a certain extent, but you don't want to get to your exam in November having to prepare 15 chapters for the exam. It's a lot of work, and it's not the only module. So you want to know, obviously, which areas are more important than others. And most of what I have covered in the last 2 days and will cover next week is going to be in that category. Right. Any questions?
All good, man.
Make a break for it, guys. Run like Forrest. It's weekend. You don't have to wait for it anymore. It is weekend. Okay, I'll repeat that to myself because it's not yet, but I'll repeat it to myself later in the day when I finish my final class. But boys and girls, because we are full house at the moment, enjoy the break. use your time productively, keep a good balance. I know you're writing tests on Monday, but don't just study. I'm not going to just mark assignments. I'm also going to try and find a balance. And somewhere, if not every evening from tomorrow or even tonight, you are permitted and you have my approval if you needed it, but I don't think you do, to light a fire and celebrate our heritage. Try and find something that is uniquely South African, that you're proud of, and celebrate that. And if it's just in these times that we live in, family or family that has passed on, that we want to celebrate the contributions that they've made. Let's just find something or someone that we are proud of and celebrate that as part of our heritage this weekend. Try and find that balance. And as I always say, take care, look after yourself, make good decisions, and stay safe.